Yesterday, I saw this same tweet from Bishop Thomas Tobin in the US, this same tweet going around all of the networks. And it was retweeted by David Calloway, it was retweeted by Scott Hahn, they posted on their Facebook pages. And, we have, it's an amazing to see the reaction that this tweet has got. So I'm just going to read through it. Because it's really important that what the bishop has said, it's vital in this moment in the church. I am convinced that if the church is to prosper in this present age, it cannot hesitate to embrace and support traditional Catholics, traditional liturgies, and traditional moral values. Quote, "Do not conform yourself to this age," St. Paul warns the followers of Christ, Romans 12:2. So that was the tweet that he sent out yesterday, the 12th of August. And it just blew up around all of the traditional Catholics retweeted it. It's incredible. I mean, people don't realize the prominent Roman Catholics that support this view. Scott Hahn, one of the greatest apologists in the last, how many decades? Scott Hahn, Peter Kreft, Patrick Madrid, Father David Calloway is coming out supporting this. I don't know if he celebrates traditional Latin Mass, but it's good to hear him. I have to put something in context here so people understand what is happening at this moment in the Catholic Church, okay? So people understand extremely well where we are in the Catholic Church. Whether you knew it or not, you are in the middle of the Third Vatican Council. Okay? You're in the middle of the Third Vatican Council. There's no other way to put it, and it's changed by stealth. That's simply it. The Second Vatican Council was a reunion of all the bishops of the world in Rome. Okay? This Vatican Council supposedly is a reunion, a listening process to all the baptized Catholics of the world, which might sound okay. Well, it's good that the Pope is asking all baptized Catholics for their opinion on the faith. What the Vatican has failed to be clear about is being transparent and open about what they want. There's no doubt about it. Just people might say, but Robert, you're reading too much into it and so forth. Pope Francis has written a motu proprio that will introduce the ability for bishops to ordain married men to the priesthood. It is written. It is drafted. It's gone through several drafts. The concept of what is called viri probati, that means proven men in the faith who have lived, who have shown their fidelity to the church, who are maybe have served as permanent deacons for many years, and the Pope will allow bishops. It's up to bishops then, bishops' conferences around the world. Each country can do it. Like same in Ireland, even though Vatican II allowed married men to be ordained deacons, many dioceses, many bishops have never ordained a single one of them or promoted it or allowed it. And so Pope Francis is going to let them out, and now you can ordain viri probati, married men to the priesthood. That motu proprio, that document, is already drafted. And so this listening process, this Third Vatican Council, once those reports come into Rome and the Pope says, well, look, all the reports are saying, but practically all the reports have said that. If you look at the Scottish report on the synodal process, if you look at all of the Irish reports, if you look at the German reports, all of these reports are saying practically the same thing. And and so the Pope will say, well, look, it's up to you, bishops' conferences in each country to decide if you want to do this, you can do it. If if the Polish bishops don't want to, well, then you don't need to do it either. So he's going to let it out into the church with this motu proprio. The day is coming, guys. You have to accept this. The day is coming, whether I don't know how soon it is, whether it's this year or early next year. Certainly before the end of 2023, that motu proprio, which already is typed up. I know this for a fact. It's already typed up and sitting there in draft. Going through Dominican scrutiny there in Rome and the theological scrutiny and so forth. I mean, let's face it, priestly celibacy is a discipline in the church. It's not a dogma. You know, there are already married priests in the Roman Rite in the Catholic Church. Pope Francis has already allowed, for example, bishops of the other rites in the church outside their territorial jurisdiction to ordain married men. This was done early on in his pontificate. So if people didn't see what was coming, they're blind. So we are in the middle of the Third Vatican Council, right? In the middle of this Third Vatican Council, what has happened? The Pope has issued Traditionis Custodes. He's made a provision that if priests want to say the traditional Latin Mass, they have to ask permission from Rome. Rome has not granted a single permission for any new priest to say the traditional Latin Mass. Okay, it's not happened. It's not going to happen. You know, there's kind of this semi-hope. Oh, maybe tradition will continue. Let us be clear. The Mass of the Ages, the Mass that was celebrated for hundreds and hundreds of years, is to be abolished in practice. It's not going to happen, but it's going in practice, in the canonical structures of the church, it has to be removed in the canonical structure. So in the canonical Catholic Church, the traditional Latin Mass has to be removed. This has come down from Rome to bishops. You are to remove the traditional Latin Mass from your parishes, from your cathedrals. It is not to be celebrated. It's like in Rome, it's banished to the catacombs. It's banished downstairs to a small little chapel where hardly anybody will see unless you're in the know. And the traditional Latin Mass will be ring-fenced into properties owned by Ecclesia Dei communities where you can travel there, but it won't be promoted. You will not be able to ordain in the traditional Latin Mass rite. Bishops will be prohibited. Guys, this is happening. Does anyone think after Cardinal Burke dies, there will be other cardinals coming along to take his place? It's not going to happen. It's simply not going to happen. People need to understand what is happening in the church. You are in the middle of the Third Vatican Council. And the consultation process on these unpublished documents is for the baptized. I mean, people might say, oh, you know, I'm being very harsh. We've seen now the push from Pope Francis. Well, councils take decades and decades to implement, and you know we need another 50 years to implement Vatican II. And to be clear, I'm not talking about Vatican II. I'm not talking about Vatican II. When Summorum Pontificum was issued, nobody was, there talking about Vatican II. All of this conversation on Vatican II has come in this pontificate. In the 1990s, if people don't remember, Vatican II was practically accepted. It was, implemented in more or less in the church. And then came the cover-ups, the paedophile scandals and all of this. And that's what people lost faith in the church. People didn't lose faith in Vatican II. They lost faith in the pastors who weren't pastors for Christ. That's a scandal. That's why people are walking away. If you look at what's happening in Germany at this moment in time, I'm just going to read you out some statistics on the German church so people understand what is happening in the church at the moment. The German church, 1990, 26.3 million Catholics subscribed, paying. Because remember, Germans, they pay tax. So that was 1990. 2000, from 28 to 26.8 million Catholics. That was in the year 2000. 2010, 24.6 million Catholics. 2020, 22.2 million Catholics. By 2030, they will have dropped below 20,000. There will be 19,800 million Catholics. 2040, 17,400. 2050, 15,000. And by the close of this century, in 80 years' time, there will be less than 3 million Catholics left in Germany. And the German synodal process is, let's get this straight. What is the German synodal process asking for? Copy-paste Protestantism. Copy-paste. Everything that the Protestants are doing. And guess what? Guess what is happening in Germany with the Protestants? They're falling even further than Catholics. And you know why? There are some German Catholics, traditional Catholics, that have stopped paying money into the Catholic Church because they're disillusioned by the bullshit. Sorry, that word. I'm sorry to say it. That's happening in Germany. They're disillusioned and said, I'm not supporting it. Like Cardinal Marx, his own archdiocese is losing tens of thousands of Catholics every year. Tens of thousands. So that is the German process. The German, and to be clear, people might think, okay, you're paying a church tax. I know in Germany, this church tax, it gives some services to families. So there would be daycare and stuff that, be pretty expensive to pay in. So it's not like you're handing money over to the church and you're not getting services back. There are lots of Catholic church services offered to Catholics that we would have to pay for in Ireland, burials and so forth. Germany, so, it's there. You do get some of this money back in a very, very real sense. You're not handing over a couple of hundred when you want to get married. If you're, do you know what I mean? But this is the craziness that we're looking at in this moment in time in the church. The German synodal process is offering us copy paste what Protestants have done. Copy paste, and Protestants are falling at an even faster rate in Germany. They're handing back their church card. So okay. So leaving aside Second Vatican Council and for a moment, because in fairness, the Second Vatican Council didn't ask to destroy tradition. They were asking for a change to the right, but not what you have today. It's not the Mass as it's celebrated in many places is not what Sacrosanctum Concilium, the document, asked for. That document, which was actually drafted during John the 23rd's pontificate, so it's one of a lot of the schemas were in Second Vatican Council were redone when Paul VI arrived. That document carried across two pontificates, and if you read the document carefully and study it, a lot of what is in that document does not exist in how the Mass is celebrated today. There was nothing in that document, for example, on celebrating ad populum. Nothing. Zero. The Council Fathers did not discuss that. There's nothing in that document, for example, by completely removing Latin from the Latin Mass, the Latin Rite. So Latin was to be retained. So if you go through it and you're going to apply the standard to that document, well, traditional Latin Mass would more meet that document today than what we have in your average Novus Ordo, which is badly attended in most parts of the world, especially in the Western Europe and in America. I know in other countries and in other regions it could be different. So we're not going to completely write off the Novus Ordo. I'm just saying in the heartland, where it originated from, in Europe, really. In Europe, which this is the Mass that would have fostered the faith of millions of Catholics and thousands of saints over centuries. In the heartland of that rite, it has done nothing. It has done nothing. That's an observation, so I can stand corrected anyway. But, it's interesting to see Bishop Tobin coming out with this tweet at this moment in time and the support that he's getting in the church at this moment in time. People want reverence. They want faith. They want leadership. They want leadership. People understand there's something incredibly wrong with what is happening in the church at the moment. In the way the most sacred is being treated. They know it. They know it. They know it. People know it. They can see it. It's not right. We hear, it's not unity is not, conformity is not unity. We don't have to conform to the same thing to be united. We can have our differences. We can pray differently in each church and each rite. Well, can we? The Roman Catholic Church seems to be the only rite, the only church in the world that is not comfortable with its way of prayer that was exercised in the past. It's not comfortable with that. It's not. It's not comfortable with the traditions that nourished millions of people. It has to be extinguished. The devil hates Latin. Well, it seems Rome hates Latin as well in the Mass, which is very bizarre. It's something demonic is happening in the church the way that this has gone. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. A good leader in the church, a good pope in the church would embrace all of his children and lead them, encourage them, bring them forward, dialogue with them and help them. You have this view, let's talk and let's work together, and not say no, that's what you've been doing. I know this has been done for hundreds of years, but now that's gone and we can't talk about that. Don't come to me, no, that's gone. Anyway, so this is the, interesting time in the church, and that tweet seems to have really caught it's caught a vibe in the church. It's been widely retweeted, widely discussed. I mean, Bishop Thomas Tobin, he's just an ordinary bishop in the US. And it's interesting to see where we go. But there's a lot of lay Catholics, very prominent lay Catholics. Peter Kreft, Scott Hahn, Patrick Madrid, Thomas Kwasniewski, all of these Catholics seem to, that love the Mass. They're all coming out supporting Bishop Thomas Tobin, not to be confused with Cardinal Tobin, two different bishops. Anyway, I just think it's good in the church now that we do lend our support to this. What Pope Benedict did and said wasn't wrong. What he said was, what previous generations held sacred is sacred to us and can't be considered harmful, forbidden, or even harmful. It's true. There has to be a continuity between, there has to be continuity between the Mass. And if you brought back any of the Council Fathers, I suppose we do have a few still alive, Bishop Pope Benedict. If you brought back any of the Council Fathers, the bishops that were in Second Vatican Council, and showed them, for example, what this guitar Mass or balloon Mass, LGBT Masses that are going on, we seem to be adding labels to the Mass ever more, we're adding labels to the Mass as we go along. It's this Mass, it's that Mass for this minority, for that group, or it's children's Mass. We're adding labels. If we brought them back and showed them what we had done to the Mass and asked them, now let's have a vote, Council Fathers, is this what you voted for? I can be sure every single one of those bishops would say no. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Because do you know why? You just have to read Sacrosanctum Concilium. That's what they voted for. That's the blueprint. So if you're going to defend the charade that we have in the church today, treating them most sacred, you have to go back and read that document. And that's your audit sheet for what's going on in the church. Mother Angelica got it right, in my words, in my opinion. She got it right. If you go to her shrine in the USA, Huntsville, Alabama, she has a booklet. That's the template that she was using for how the Mass should be celebrated. Ad orientem, with communion rails, communion kneeling on the tongue, using Latin, beautiful vestments, beautiful church, elevating the sacred. Any change that bishops and priests do to the Mass, anything that we do has to lead to an increase of faith, hope and charity. If what we have done in many ways hasn't done that, it has done the opposite. So, it's an interesting time in the church. There's a lot of things happening. Again, to be clear, I'm not writing off Second Vatican Council. I think we're beyond that now, because we're in the middle of the Third Vatican Council in this moment in time. You just haven't realised it. This is the most monumental ecclesiastical process that has ever happened in the Catholic Church, whether you realise it or not. And if you've not engaged with it and not made your... because I know many traditions... I know many of them have... this sadly, for example, if you're looking at the Society of St. Pius X, they have just, what is there to say? They have the agenda is set. What can we have? Many traditional Catholics have refused to get engaged with this process. And really, they haven't been asked to get engaged either, because they know the foregone conclusion that's going to come out. The reports are there to see. Why would anyone lend their voice to what they've seen there? Do you know? All of a sudden, traditional moral values are out the door. It seems, what you're told, don't get married, don't have sex before marriage. Really, Robert, that's a bit outdated, really, that type of holding up that moral values. And no, that's pre-Vatican II. Today, people live differently. You have to deal with the realities differently, Robert. Don't go promoting that. Anyway, I digress. But look, I think it's important now that people pray, people know what's happening, people understand the battle that we're facing in the church. There has never been a change as great as what we have faced in the Catholic Church, as we have faced after Second Vatican Council. It simply has never. If you look at the history of the Church, and I know people are trawling through all of the councils and looking at the history of their implementation and so forth, Second Vatican Council is the greatest rupture and change that the Church has ever faced. Okay? And for good or for bad, I suppose, we won't know for 50, 60, 70 years. It could all turn out to be perfectly fine, and the Church could come together and face these challenges. But, I suppose the question has to be asked. Leaving aside the documents of the Second Vatican Council, the question has to be asked. Is what we practice today, the faith that we practice, the faith that bishops are pushing today, is that faith what Second Vatican Council called for? Is the Mass that's celebrated today, in most places, for example, here in Knock, where you're asked to stand or kneel, where you're asked to only receive communion on the hand, after 3 years of this thing that's been going around, after 3 years, we have to ask you what's going on in the Catholic Church. What is going on? What is going on? Ask yourselves. Don't be the frog that's slowly being boiled, and by the time you wake up, it's too late to get out of the pot. Ask yourself, do you love the faith? Do you love the Catholic faith? Study it. Study it. Challenge yourselves. Study the documents of the Second Vatican Council. Many people haven't read them. And as I said, I'm not going to start questioning the council. I'm questioning what is happening in the church today that was never discussed in the council. That's what I'm questioning. I'm questioning what has happened in the church last year and this year, that, really trying to fool people. Oh, traditionis custodes. If a priest wants to celebrate the traditional Latin Mass, just ask your bishop and he'll talk to Rome and we'll work something out. There's going to be no working out. If you're a seminarian today and you're not in the traditional movement, you will not be able to celebrate the traditional Latin Mass. You won't get the permission. Not under this pontificate anyway. And who knows under the next one. Why? Why is there this? Why is the church doing this? What is behind the hatred of a priest or a deacon wanting to pray to traditional Latin Mass? Do you know? I don't know. Something doesn't. Catholics understand there's not right what's happening there. It's not right. Anyway, look, we have to pray. Don't despair. Don't despair. Be Catholic. Challenge yourselves. Christ is in his church. He's working in his church. He hasn't left us. He is there. He is present. He is asking us to love him in the Eucharist, to go to him, to encounter him in confession. And that's what we need to do at this moment in time. The church is strengthen the church, help the church. But challenge priests, bishops, cardinals, the Pope. Challenge them on what they are doing. Ask them to explain to you. Okay, dear Bishop, sincerely ask them, dear Bishop, we had a council in the 1960s and a document was issued called Sacrosanctum Concilium, and here it's stating this, and this as regards changes to the Mass. And now we see this, and this, which were never mentioned in the Second Vatican Council, which were never voted for, which, the indult, which is it's an exception, it's a special permission for receiving communion on the hand. If a person wanted it, there was an indult to allow them. The indult now seems to be the universal law of the Roman Catholic Church. Quite amazing. Even though we've never had a motu proprio on what is the key. This is, if you look in practice what has happened in the Roman Catholic Church, the indult has become and millions and millions of Catholics disengaged with the Mass. As look at the statistics here in Germany. Millions of Catholics, even those that pay German church tax, don't go to Mass. You cannot bet. So 20 million Catholics in Germany that pay church tax today. Only more than 1 million, 2 million Catholics go to Mass every Sunday. Why do people continue to pay Catholic church tax in Germany? Well, many of them for the services you will get from the church. And it's okay. Might as well get something out of it. If you can get daycare for your kids or something like that, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Is that really a way of, I don't know. I mean, in Ireland, it's quite obvious where we're going with the faith. But, look, and people might say I'm being pessimistic. I'm not. I'm tired of what the church is doing. I'm tired. I'm tired of them not forming people. I'm tired of them not teaching the faith, not encouraging people to teach the faith, not catechizing them. I mean, we have a catechism of the Catholic Church. It's not used. It's not taught. We do not teach the Catholic faith in Irish secondary schools. The catechism of the Catholic Church is not even on. It's not there. It's not present in. So in the years when children should most be challenged, you want to. That's the age of ideas. The teenagers are questioning her, and that's the age that we're not challenging them. We have hundreds of thousands of children in Irish secondary Catholic schools, which will never know. Which, in their 5 years, there are teenagers in 5 years or 6 years of Catholic secondary school will not open the Bible once. It's not even on the curriculum. It's not even on the book list for them to own a Bible or to bring a Bible to school. Can you imagine that? That's Ireland for you. I mean, never talk about the catechism. It's religious education. Religious. So what does religious education do? It's the exit process out of the Catholic Church in Ireland. Because it's so boring. It's like Irish. We teach Irish in secondary schools. What is the process of learning our own language? I mean, I went through it myself. So like, this is why am I going to? When I was a teenager, how did I see it? Why am I going to learn Irish? Nobody speaks Irish. It's not used in Ireland, and I was totally disengaged with learning the language of our country. Sadly, it's not, and that's simply it. If you want to teach a language, you have to speak the language. You have to live in. It's only when I went abroad and you went to so many different countries, then I understood the importance of language, because it's coupled with culture, it's coupled with history, it's coupled with so many things. And in Ireland, we have lost our language, we have lost our religion. We've lost the language, which was so full of meaning, of mystery and so forth. We have lost that. We've lost our religion. We have intentionally not taught our religion in Catholic schools. We have removed Catholic and replaced it with religious education, which does not teach the Catholic faith. It's actually a course on leaving the Catholic Church for the majority of people. They're disengaged. They do not understand it. They don't understand the mystery of the Catholic faith. Anyway, 30 minutes, that was too much. So, look, pray for the church. Pray for what's going on. But keep your eyes open. Ask the questions. As a baptized Catholic, you have the right to ask a priest or bishop, hold on a second. What are you doing here? Where did you invent that out of? When a clown comes flying into the church, or God knows what priests invent, when they come in they do an Irish dancing after Mass, or they come in on a skateboard. Because, priests sometimes spend their whole time, how do I make the Mass more interesting? What will I do this week to make the Mass more interesting, to keep people there, to bring them back? What gymnastics do we need to do at Mass to make it more interesting? It's sure, we've lived through 50 years of this now. They've done every single experiment they can do. And look where we are. Anyway, God bless. Pray for the church and pray for the Pope. And, don't despair. Christ hasn't left us, but he's challenging us now. He's challenging. This is the moment of challenge. God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.